When an FBI director loses his composure in front of Congress and starts slinging insults at a senator, the outburst says more than his carefully rehearsed answers ever could. Anger in that setting doesn't appear out of nowhere, it signals pressure, frustration, and the weight of secrets still being shielded from public view. That's what makes moments like these so revealing. They don't just show us the personality of one man, they reveal the condition of an institution, an agency that insists it is transparent, yet shields information that could shake public trust if it were fully exposed. And at the heart of the storm lies a case that refuses to go away: Jeffrey Epstein and the unanswered questions surrounding his network.
During your confirmation hearing, you made several important commitments. For instance, you told Senator Coons there will be no politicization at the FBI, there'll be no retributive actions taken by any FBI should I be confirmed as FBI director. So let me ask you very specifically, did you ever take any action to terminate or discipline an FBI agent or employee in whole or in part as retribution for being part of an investigation of Donald Trump or January 6th?
No.
You also committed, you assured Senator Blumenthal, all FBI employees will be protected against political retribution. So you're testifying today that you played no role in the firing of even a single FBI agent for political retribution.
None for political retribution.
And if any FBI agent said you did, they would be lying. Is that your testimony?
I'm only speaking to my actions. Everybody is allowed to make their allegations.
Oh, no, these are allegations against you.
And
so, Mr. Patel, if FBI, senior FBI agents or employees said that you were firing them for political retribution reasons because of the cases they were assigned, you're saying they would be lying. Is that
anyone that was terminated at the FBI was done so for failing to meet the standards, uphold their constitutional oath, and effectuate the mission.
Well, by meet the standards, are you talking about meet the standards of protecting the president under any circumstance?
No.
You also guaranteed Senator Blumenthal that every FBI employee will be held to the same, absolute same standard. No one will be terminated for case assignments. Are you testifying today that you never terminated anyone at the FBI in whole or in part because of a prior case assignment?
No one at the FBI is terminated for case assignments alone.
Well, I'm asking about you, Mr. Patel. Did you, in whole or in part, terminate anyone at the FBI because they worked on the Trump investigation or because they worked on January 6th?
No one at the FBI has been terminated for case assignments alone.
Okay, you're saying alone. Does that mean they were terminated in part because they were assigned to a January 6th case or assigned to the Mar-a-Lago case? You're being very precise here, Mr. Patel. You're saying alone. That means they were fired in part because they were assigned those cases. Is that your testimony?
Absolutely not. But if you want to keep putting words in my mouth,
then let me ask you, let's strip away the word alone. Did you terminate or participate in any discipline of any FBI employee in whole or in part because of their work on an investigation of Donald Trump or January 6th? Yes or no?
Any terminations at the FBI by employees.
No, I'm asking you a very specific question.
And I'm going to answer the question, but you don't like the answer because it's the truth and it guts your narrative.
I want an answer to my question. I don't want an answer to someone else's question. So let me just be precise, and I ask for a yes or no answer. Did you ever terminate or discipline an FBI employee in whole or in part because they had been assigned or worked on an investigation of Donald Trump or January 6th?
FBI
yes or no?
employees are only terminated
yes
if
or
they
no,
fail
Mr.
to
Patel?
uphold their oaths of
yes
office
or no?
and duty.
You're not answering my question.
I don't have to answer your question yes or no because you're setting up a trap so you can have a media narrative.
I'm not setting up a trap.
And I'm not giving it to you.
Unless it's true that you fired people.
People have been terminated at the FBI who failed to uphold the standards that the FBI requires them to uphold.
Did you tell anyone at the FBI that all FBI employees who they identified who had worked on cases against President Trump would be removed from their jobs? Did you tell that to someone at the FBI?
Say that I would remove people for case assignments?
That you would, that people that were identified as having worked on cases against President Trump would be removed from their jobs. Did you tell that to someone at the FBI?
People are not removed for
Just
case
answer my question.
assignments.
Just answer my question. Did you tell that to
People
someone?
are not removed for case
No,
assignments.
you're not
and
answering
I
my
would-
question.
And I would
Mr.
never
Patel,
tell anyone.
did you tell someone at the FBI that FBI employees identified as having worked on cases against President Trump would be removed from their jobs? Yes or no, did you tell someone that?
I would never tell anyone at the FBI that they're being removed for basically their case assignments.
Okay, so anyone who had said that would be lying. Is that your testimony?
Anyone can say whatever they want.
No, I know, but you're saying they were a liar.
I'm telling you what I said.
Because this is in the complaint against you, Mr. Patel. So you're saying Mr. Driscoll and others are liars?
I'm not going to address the complaint and the ongoing
Okay, well then let me ask
litigation.
you, have you ever told anyone at the FBI that the FBI tried to put the president in jail and he hasn't forgotten it, and that your job depended on the removal of agents who worked on cases against the president?
No.
Did you ever tell anyone that?
No.
Okay. Did you ever tell anyone that you knew these summary firings you were undertaking were illegal, likely illegal, and that you would be sued and later deposed? Did you ever tell anyone that?
No firings at the FBI or terminations were done for anything other than justified
Did you ever
cause.
tell anyone that, Mr.
No,
Patel? Why don't you
no
answer my question?
terminations at the FBI were ever done in my tenure for anything other than failing
Did you
to
ever tell
uphold
anyone
their
that,
oath of
Mr.
the
Patel? You willing to
office
answer
or
the
their-
question?
The FBI.
I guess
I
you're not
have
willing to
answered
answer the
it.
question. So let me move on. Let me
Repeatedly.
move on to the Epstein files. You said you're the most transparent FBI director in history, so I'm going to put you to the test. In 2024, you were asked by Glenn Beck about Epstein's Black Book. And you said, he asked, who has Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book? And you said, Black Book FBI. And he said, but who? That is, I mean theirs. And you said, oh, that's under the direct control of the director of the FBI. That's what you said. Was that true, Mr. Patel?
I'll rely on you quoting it accurately. I did that a couple
Was
of
it
years
true
ago.
what you represented to Mr. Beck and the president's supporters out there, or were you lying?
No,
Was it true that the Black Book, Epstein's Black Book, was in the possession of the FBI director?
The Black Book was in the possession of the FBI.
Okay, so now that you're the FBI director, you have possession of the Black Book, right?
That index has been released.
So you have Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book?
What is known as Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book has been released
Okay,
by
and
us.
And you released it. And let me follow up on Senator Kennedy's question, because he asked you, and I'll be very precise here. You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself? And you said, himself, there's no credible information, none. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And Kennedy, the information we have, again, is limited. And Senator Kennedy said, the answer is no one. And you said, for the information we have. So is it your testimony today that in all the Epstein files, that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked no one to anyone but himself? Is that your testimony, Mr.
I never
Patel?
said Jeffrey Epstein didn't traffic anyone else.
Did he traffic any young woman to someone other than himself? That was Mr. Kennedy's question,
And I
Senator Kennedy's
said
question.
the information that 3 administrations have had access to
I'm
have
asking
made
you-
determinations that there are no investigative leads that were credible to prosecute and investigate any others. I'm
Well,
specifically
I'm asking
stating
you whether
we
it's
were
your
working on.
testimony today.
Well, you just read
that
it, and I said it 10 minutes ago, so let the record.
This wasn't supposed to happen. During his confirmation hearing, Patel promised senators there would be no politicization at the FBI. He gave his word that there would be no retaliation against employees for political reasons, no firings tied to controversial investigations. He told them that under his leadership, every employee would be held to the same standard, and that the Bureau would serve only the law, not any political figure. The words were reassuring. They were meant to draw a line in the sand and give senators confidence. But words in Washington are only as strong as the actions that follow, and when questions about retaliation surfaced, the promises began to look hollow. The questions were direct, the kind any ordinary citizen might ask if given a seat in the hearing room. Had agents or employees been fired, disciplined, or otherwise punished for their work on politically sensitive cases? It was a simple yes or no, but instead of clarity, the answers turned into a maze of carefully chosen language. Phrases like not for case assignments alone or employees are only terminated for failing to uphold their oath sound official, but they also raise eyebrows. Why add qualifiers like alone unless there's more underneath? Why not simply deny the accusation outright if it isn't true? Each word seemed less like a denial and more like a lawyer's attempt to leave room for interpretation. The evasiveness only fueled suspicion. The senator pressed harder. If whistleblowers or senior employees testified that they were pushed out as punishment for their assignments, were they lying? Was every complaint fabricated? Once again the answer swerved, refusing to land. Patel insisted that anyone terminated had failed to meet Bureau standards, but when challenged on whether those standards were defined by loyalty tests, he bristled and dug in. It was less the tone of someone calmly defending truth, and more the tone of someone cornered. That's when the focus shifted to the issue that always lingers just beneath the surface, the Epstein files. Years earlier, in an interview with Glenn Beck, Patel had openly acknowledged that the infamous Black Book, the index of names tied to Epstein's operations, was under the direct control of the FBI director. That statement was made before he ever held the role. Now sitting as director, he was confronted with his own words. Was it true? Did the FBI still hold Epstein's Black Book, and if so, why wasn't the public seeing all of it? He tried to thread the needle, saying the Bureau had released what was known as Epstein's Black Book. Released, yes, but was it complete, or was it a carefully trimmed version? The difference matters, and the American public knows it. The power of a name on that list could shake governments, topple reputations, and rewrite narratives. To suggest the matter is settled by a vague release doesn't pass the smell test. The senator then pivoted to an even sharper point. In past testimony, Patel had said there was no credible evidence Epstein trafficked anyone to other individuals. According to him, every case reviewed by 3 administrations concluded that no prosecutable leads tied Epstein's victims to anyone but Epstein himself. That claim stunned many watching because survivors like Virginia Giuffre had given sworn statements that told a very different story. Could all of those voices really be dismissed as lacking credibility, or was the Bureau choosing the path of least resistance, closing off leads rather than following them? The answer Patel gave didn't reassure. Instead, it deepened the divide between survivors' testimony and the official narrative. For the public, it raised a chilling possibility that history might be rewritten not by truth, but by omission. And then came the matter of Epstein's closest partner, Ghislaine Maxwell. Schiff pointed to her suspicious transfer to a minimum security facility shortly after she gave testimony that touched on powerful names. For anyone familiar with the way the Bureau of Prisons operates, the timing looked strange. Routine transfers do happen, but rarely so quickly, and rarely in cases with such high stakes. Maxwell's testimony had alluded to a cast of characters that included influential people, even those connected to the highest levels of government. If that testimony was inconvenient, moving her to a softer setting could look like a favor. Patel tried to wash his hands of the matter, insisting the Bureau of Prisons made the call independently. But the explanation left more questions than answers. Why at that exact moment? Why to a facility not suited for sex offenders? And why should anyone believe the decision was divorced from her cooperation? This was the breaking point. The measured evasions gave way to open hostility. Patel launched into personal attacks, calling Schiff a fraud, a coward, a disgrace, even the biggest liar ever to sit in the Senate. It was no longer about defending policy, it was about attacking the legitimacy of the questioner himself. Watching the exchange, one could almost forget the subject matter and focus only on the shouting match, but the real story wasn't the insults, it was what they revealed. When officials dodge and lash out rather than answer, it often means the question has cut too close to the truth. Anger becomes a shield, a distraction to pull attention away from the fact that the answer itself would be damning. That's why this hearing mattered. It wasn't theater for its own sake, it was about accountability. Schiff's questions weren't elaborate traps, they were clear and precise. Did you retaliate against agents for their assignments? What's in the Black Book? Did Epstein really traffic no one else? Why was Maxwell transferred after testimony? Each of those questions could have been answered in plain language. Instead, they were met with hedges, evasions, and finally insults. For an agency that claims transparency, it looked like the exact opposite. There is an important distinction here, one that cuts to the heart of trust in institutions. Transparency isn't about how loudly or passionately someone declares their integrity. It's about whether the evidence can be independently reviewed. It's about whether documents are unsealed, whether records are produced, whether explanations are backed up with paperwork. The FBI has legitimate constraints. Certain evidence, especially child exploitation material, can never be made public. Protective orders do bind agencies in certain cases, but those limits don't explain the broader pattern. There are still countless steps that could be taken to bring sunlight into the process without compromising victims. Redacted witness statements, inspector general audits, motions to unseal sealed records, subpoenas for Epstein's estate, all of these tools exist and have precedent. None of them require evasive testimony or angry outbursts. What they require is will. Take the Maxwell transfer as a case study. If the move was routine, there should be documentation forms, internal memos, criteria sheets. Producing those would settle the matter instantly. If they don't exist, or if they contradict the narrative, then suspicion is justified. This is why hearings matter. They press for the kind of clarity that bureaucracies would rather avoid. They force into the open the decisions that otherwise remain hidden behind layers of procedure. And in cases involving powerful figures, that pressure is the only reason the truth has any chance of emerging. For survivors, every deflection is another wound. Imagine waiting years, even decades, for justice, only to see officials argue over semantics while your abuser's powerful associates escape scrutiny. For the public, each evasive answer reinforces the belief that justice operates on two tracks, one for the powerless, another for the connected. That belief corrodes institutions faster than scandal itself, because once people stop believing the system will ever treat the powerful fairly, the entire premise of equal justice is shattered. In that sense, the FBI's handling of Epstein isn't just about one case. It's about the credibility of the rule of law. And here's the paradox: accountability here wouldn't require a crusade. It wouldn't take a leak, or a whistleblower risking prison, or a senator shouting from the rafters. It would require routine bureaucratic steps, redactions, filings, audits, that happen in thousands of other cases every year. The only difference is who might be implicated if the documents were fully revealed. That's what makes the anger so telling. If there truly was nothing to hide, transparency would be the easiest path. The fact that it provokes fury suggests the opposite. This brings us to the real lesson. Institutions don't reform because leaders get angry. They don't reform because officials insist they're the most transparent in history. They reform because citizens demand it. They reform when the cost of secrecy becomes higher than the cost of disclosure. Every time a senator presses for answers, every time a journalist digs into redacted filings, every time survivors speak out, that cost increases. And every time the public shares those stories, calls their representatives, or insists on oversight, the pressure builds. What we witnessed in that hearing wasn't just a clash of personalities, it was a collision between two versions of accountability. One version says, "Trust us, we're professionals, we'll decide what you're allowed to know." The other version says, "No, evidence belongs to the people, and officials answer to them." Only one of those visions aligns with democracy. And each evasive answer makes it clearer which path the Bureau is choosing. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a choice. Either the Epstein files remain another chapter in a long history of scandals that fade into secrecy, or they become the catalyst for genuine reform. If we want the latter, then outrage has to be channeled into action. Call representatives. Demand subpoenas for Epstein's estate records. Push for Inspector General reviews of closed leads. Insist on redacted but public witness statements. Share the hearings, not as spectacle, but as evidence of the need for pressure. The victims deserve closure. The public deserves the truth. And history has shown time and again, whether during Watergate, Iran-Contra, or other moments of crisis, that institutions only change when ordinary citizens make it unavoidable. Transparency doesn't happen by accident, it happens when the public demands it. If Patel or any official truly wanted to restore trust, they'd stand shoulder to shoulder with those demands, not scream them down. And until that happens, it's on us to keep the pressure alive. Because every closed file, every sealed transcript, every evasive answer leaves survivors without justice and the public without truth. That's not a price any democracy can afford to pay. Subscribe so you don't miss the deep dive breakdown of the documents, the filings, and the transcripts still sealed. Share this widely, because outrage fades, but paper trails remain, and it's those trails that can finally deliver the accountability that anger alone never will.